Hi, I'm Bradley Wilson, and I thought we would spend a little bit of time today talking about sports photography. Sports photography beyond the basics, going beyond that stuff that you might get in just an introductory workshop. So, again, I call this sports photography beyond the basics, but I'd be remiss if I didn't start off with some just basics, like move up close, know the sport, play with light, and be patient. Move up close and follow the rule of thirds. Get the subject out of the center of the frame in the upper left or upper right corners, maybe the lower left or the lower right corners. Know the sport, the players, the coaches, the fans, and all the people that surround the sport. And don't be afraid to shoot practice. Sometimes you can learn a lot about the sport by shooting practice, and you can get quite good pictures with the freedom that you can't get during a performance game. Play with light. Try to avoid backlighting, that silhouette effect. We want to see the faces. We want to see the emotion. And be patient. So I'll start by talking a little bit about move up close and show you some photographs that I think illustrate this point. Brian's photo of football. You won't see very many football pictures in here because I'm from Texas. I see too much football anyway. But what a great job Brian did of moving up close and really filling that frame so we can feel the impact of the players and the emotion in the game. Look how the photographer here moved up so close and got a little bit lucky. And I think Michael would probably admit that. He got a little bit lucky with the placement of the light. And some people would say we need more of the ball, but I love how the ball just accents his eye and how the background's really blurry and there's nothing wasted in this frame. Every square millimeter of this frame is something used because Michael really moved up close. Here's a photo by Robert Hinashiro just illustrating the detail shot. Sometimes a piece of the action can tell more story than the action itself. So let me remind you, of course, that we're not talking about iPhone photography here with most sports. You've really got to have some specialized glass, some specialized equipment, probably high-priced cameras and probably high-priced lenses to get these kinds of pictures. Here's a swimming shot. Just think about where the photographer had to stand, what the lighting was. Did he have to ask permission to be in advance to be there? Look how he got down low, almost eye level with the swimmer, and then knew the sport well enough to know when Justin was going to be coming up, or had practiced, or had watched. Really tight frame there, no wasted space. Another photo of Brian's. Look how he got in there, this time with a wide angle lens. And really got in on the action so you can feel like you're a part of it. You got to get up close. You've got to be a part of the action. Another swimming shot, this time by Brian. Use a slightly slower shutter speed to get a little bit of the blur. But again, Brian knew the sport really well, knew how the swimmer was going to be coming up. Or maybe this photo out of Texarkana, Texas by a high school student. It's just a piece of the action, a detail shot. Move up close, fill the frame. Another wide shot by Brian. Look how he got in there, in on the action. He jumped right in with the players to make the viewer of this picture feel like they're a piece of the action. Even in hockey, a sport that's definitely, for safety reasons, going to require long lenses. And Michael knew that. So if you want to feel like you're in on the action, you've got to use a long lens. You have to know where to stand, be behind the protective barriers, but you can still get really tight shots, as Michael proves here. Maybe it's not even an organized or sanctioned sport, but it's just some guys out playing tug of war. Right? But think about what Michael had to do here. He had to be down on the ground, risk getting a little bit dirty. You got to do that if you're going to be getting good sports photography. You got to be willing to be wet out in the rain. You got to be willing to be out in the heat, just like the athletes are. Or down in the mud, as Michael was here. Or on the beach, covering beach volleyball. Michael again. Right, so I hope I've emphasized that first important point about moving up close. Now let's just go look at some sports photography from different sports and talk about what the photographer did to get these good pictures. I'm going to start and end by talking about coverage. Right? Here's a really nice photo by a college photographer, right, of urban athletes. Right? Maybe it's a story we don't cover a lot, but where do people work out? How are they working out during a pandemic? Right? Are they working out at school? Are they going to the gym? Or have they made home gyms? If they made home gyms, go document that piece of the coverage. These can be fun stories. Typically, when we talk about sports, one of the sports we talk about most often is football. You won't see me talk a lot about football because I've seen so many pictures of it. But I just love this picture by Laura here. Long lens, right? We can tell that because of the blurry background, right? Plus, we know where the photographer was standing on the sidelines. But look at the moment that the photographer got. He flips into the end zone for a touchdown. Right? And the caption adds that information. Another kind of football, quite frankly, a more popular kind of football. Look at the light, that golden hour, probably towards sunset. Fast shutter speed to stop the action. Long lens, which gave us that blurry, clean background. And look at the ball, the placement of the ball and the header and the hands reaching for it. Everything working together to give us an impactful photograph. Another football picture. Again, long lens, blurry background. Look at the facial expressions. Look at the interaction between the players and the interaction between the players and the ball. This is one of my favorite football shots. Look at the leading line of the leg coming into the frame. The facial expression in the upper left-hand corner, not in the center of the frame, following the rule of thirds. Long lens. We know the photographer had to be pretty far back. That gave us that nice blurry background. Fast shutter speed to stop the action. What a great moment in that game. Another form of football, rugby. Nick shot this one from a little bit higher view of vantage point. We've got a great little moment in the game. Player got tackled, got hurt. There's a moment in the game. Rugby is a great sport to shoot. If you haven't shot it, you should, because there's moments like these in rugby. Again, long lens, blurry background, low numbered f-stop, blurry background. Right? But we've also got the framing of the players in the foreground. We've got the layers, the foreground, the middle ground, and the background. Right? Fast shutter speed to stop the action, but then you're all looking at the picture, wanting to know what's going on, to where we turn to the caption for more information and we find out that the guy's okay. Or maybe we're doing a story about Little League and how our high school players are coaching Little League. So we go out to take pictures of the high school players coaching Little League. Now let's face it, there's a little bit of luck in this picture, right? But the photographer had to be at the right place at the right time with the right equipment and the right knowledge to shoot. Well, it's a relatively difficult situation. Very harsh light in the middle of the day, and you can tell that by looking at the ball, right? The sun straight overhead, right? Good placement of the subject in the frame. Fast shutter speed to stop the action, so the photographer had to have the right ISO, the right shutter speed, ready to go. And he's probably just taking pictures, and then all of a sudden the kid breaks the bat. Right? Now, some people criticize this picture because the kid doesn't have any feet. And I'm okay with that. Now, I might like to have his feet in the picture, but I want the moment. I want the moment where that kid with his tongue sticking out breaks the bat. There's a moment in that game. And I can sacrifice some of the other things that any other day I'd really like to have because of this moment. Softball, a sport I find actually very difficult to shoot because you have to have such a long lens and you have to be so patient in order to shoot softball. So here's a game where maybe not much else was going on, but we have this just funny little moment where the girl's ponytail is flapping up into her face. I want you to notice that, but I also want you to notice how tightly cropped it is. Right? It's not just another picture shot shooting down the line of the picture. We've got the funny aspect of it, the nice clean background, the leading line of the arm up into her face, the placement of the subject in the upper right-hand corner. And then we can talk about color and how the background color doesn't distract and the uniform color and the background color work together. So the colors are working together. Ben's photo, Ben from the University of Missouri here. Look where he shot this photo from. I think it's probably a camera mounted on the backstop. I wouldn't have thought to mount a camera from the backstop. It's pretty clever. Great way to get a new angle, show new perspectives, get up high, get down low. Show me the game from the player's point of view. One of my favorite sports to shoot, gymnastics. Gymnastics and rodeo. I think they have the most polite group of players out there. They always say please, they always say thank you, they like for you to be there because they just don't get much coverage and they deserve it. I think the swimmers on your swim team, probably the hardest working athletes at your school. If you have a gymnastics team, they're right up there with them. Those guys and girls work harder than you can imagine. Right? And they'll let you in there because they want the coverage. Getting close, right? Just a piece of the action sometimes tells the story. Or shoot wide, but watch the background. Lacrosse, a sport that's just making it into the southern United States. Nice use of the rule of thirds, some leading lines going on in there. Blurry background, low depth of field, fast shutter speed. Here's one by my friend Peyton Williams out in North Carolina shooting Duke. Again, long lens, blurry background, low depth of field, fast shutter speeds to stop the action. And notice in neither one of those pictures do we have the ball. We're concentrating on the interaction of the players. Sometimes you don't need the ball, sometimes you do. Swimming, a really hard sport to shoot. This picture was probably taken with a GoPro. Use the equipment that you've got, try new things, try drone photography, try some GoPro photography. When I first saw this picture, I was a little taken aback because it won some very high awards in the College Photography of the Year competition. I'm like, it's blurry, there's no center visual interest. But the more I look at it, the more I stare at it, the more I think this is an image that crosses the line in between just photojournalism and photography as art. This is the kind of picture that I might run really big, like double truck in the yearbook, across 2 pages. Think about what the photographer Andrew had to know about light here, had to position himself to get the light that comes off the diver's hair. This is by one of our photographers that I worked with, and I will tell you that our swimming diving gym at North Carolina State was very, very, very poorly lit. So we really had to jack up the ISOs to hope to get anything. So one of our photographers set out to get a picture of diving, and I remember the first time he came back, he had nothing. So we went back again. And he tried really hard to get diving pictures, but it was just so dark. And finally, he came back with this one, and we were all so happy with it. Good composition, good facial expressions, nice clean background. It's a tad blurry, but I'll take it because that pool was so dark. Now we have ISOs that are double what they were back then. But back then we could only get, I think, to 3200, maybe 6400 ISO. Not enough for that pool. Look at this picture. Are you focused on the diver? Or are you focused on the people in the background? Watch the backgrounds. They can tell stories. They can be distracting, or they can tell stories. I like this picture because, again, it's an atypical sport, ultimate. Taken by one of our young photographers. Nice clean background, good interaction between the players. But it's also just a sport we don't see get covered enough. And these people work hard, they have fun, and they deserve coverage. Get out there and cover them. It's better than football, it's better than basketball. You'll have more fun, you'll make more of a difference, and you'll meet new friends. Now, if you're lucky enough to live in San Francisco, where things like this might happen, this is a really cool picture. I live in North Texas, close to the Oklahoma border. And believe me, if we ever see this, the rest of you all are in trouble. So again, I think we're crossing the line in between here, just pure photojournalism and photography as art. Another picture that won significant awards in the College Photography of the Year competition. Sometimes we're just hunting for feature photos. Sometimes we just send our photographers out and say, hey, go find a photo. We've got some space to fill, or we need to tell another story. So this was a story of a private boxing rink that was near our university. Just a found story. We didn't even know it existed. Again, good composition, follows the rule of thirds, good interaction between the boxers, slightly slower shutter speed to give us a sense of the blur and a sense of the action. Get up high, try those extreme perspectives, get them really low. If unusual sports come to your campus or your city, try shooting them. Try getting things that other people don't get. These kinds of pictures make for great portfolio shots because they make your portfolio stand out. It's more than football and it's more than basketball. Again, I love shooting rodeo. They'll let you go anywhere. My students tried to get me on the back of a bull at my first rodeo. I'm like, no, 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 no. And they've been trying for 30 years since. Not going to happen. Try the extreme angles. Maybe they'll let you up in the rafters or mount a camera up in the rafters. Get behind the scenes, right? You can follow these guys will sometimes travel for a week or more for 8 seconds of sheer terror, right? We'll document the behind the scenes that goes into all of that. Pretty straightforward shot. Nice lighting, good composition, good use of the rule of thirds, fast shutter speed, long lens, blurry background, low depth of field. Kelly was somebody that just really knows how to play with light. So he waited until the scene fit the scene that he had in his mind. Got the light from coming from above, but used the shadow to accent the picture. And then he did a photo story, a series of 8 pictures on this. And just look at the variety in the 8 pictures. Sure, you've got the action in the upper right-hand corner, but you've got the detailed belt buckle shot on the upper left-hand corner, the reaction shot of the injured player in the lower left, the interaction behind the scenes in the lower right. And then he continues, and look how he tried different things. He tried some slow shutter speed work. He tried some backlight work. He used some real composition techniques like leading lines and following the rule of thirds in the lower right-hand corner, and just the rule of thirds and the repetition of shapes in the upper right-hand corner. So this is a photographer that's showing off his skills here and showing what a talented photographer he is in so many levels, just with some shots from a rodeo. I put this picture in here not to show a gory picture of a bullfight, but to talk about caption writing. The caption that's here is exactly what was transmitted on the AP. It's not the gold standard for captions. It's the accepted standard. It's best practices for captions. It answers the questions who, what, when, and where in the first sentence. Julio Aparicio, one of Spain's most famous matadors, was gored in the throat May 22nd, 2010 during a bullfight. But then it also starts to answer the questions that you want to know the answers to. The injury left him in critical condition. Quote, the horn went through the tongue and penetrated the roof of the mouth, fracturing the jawbone. One of the medics who worked in Aparicio told AFP News in Madrid. Isn't that cool? They talked to the medics. They couldn't get to him because he's probably in surgery. Right? And we got to get our pictures out. Get them on Twitter. Get them on Facebook. It's got to be first. So they talked to the medics. But we still don't know what happened to him. After 2 operations, Surgeon Maximo Garcia Pedro saved Aparicio's life. Now we know the answer to that. Now you want to know what happened to the bull. Other matadors, however, quickly killed the bull. There you go. And then we have additional information. The incident took place in the festival of San Isidro, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's not the gold standard for captions. That's best practices for all captions. Let's look at some track and field pictures. Another Brian picture. Look how the photographer got down low with a wide angle lens, and you feel like you're right in the puddle of the steeplechase. Steeplechase is fun to shoot. Here's another steeplechase. And I want you to look closely at this one from the Register Guard by a photographer friend of mine, Andy Nelson. And now you see the guy who's face planting right in the middle. But notice that this is a newspaper picture. They printed this picture an entire page, turned the page sideways because they knew of the dramatic impact of this picture. High depth of field, not low depth of field. Fast shutter speed. The lighting's not all that great, right? Middle of the day lighting, right? But you've got this moment of the face plant right in the middle. And if you ran that picture small, it just wouldn't have the impact. So when you get good pictures, run them big. Get down low, shoot up. Get down low, shoot up. Here we're violating so many rules, shooting into the sun. Can't see the faces. But what an interesting shot. Trying something different. Another tug of war shot, but look at those facial expressions. You got to be willing to get dirty. You got to be willing to get a little bit wet sometimes to get the good shots. Track and field, that moment where the runner just reaches out for that last grasp in order to win the race. Maybe you want to try some slow shutter speed stuff. Where you follow the runners along, maybe do some panning and take some chances. I always shoot my bank shots and then I'll play around a little bit. Maybe you want to think about how you crop your pictures. In the original version of this picture, I bet the guy's faces were all in there, but that's not the picture. The picture is the guy that planted on the ground down there. So crop it. There's no picture ever taken that doesn't need to be cropped at least a little bit. And if you have unique sports in your area, shoot some of the unique sports. Show me different parts of the world. Show me things I can't see. Take me places I can't go. And now just a little word about small portfolios or picture sets. Some contests or some job applications are going to ask for a portfolio or a collection of images. Think about showing, like Kelly did in his rodeo shots, your skill set. So in this case, Sean has shown me he can get up high and shoot down on a race and look for patterns. Shoot tight at a tennis game and be patient and wait for that ball and the placement of the racket. Probably set up artificial lights for the wrestling shot. So a variety of sports, variety of lighting situations, variety of lenses. And Sean has showed me that he's mastered all of that. Here's another set, right? Completely different ideas, shooting atypical perspectives on things. So we've got the boxing shot in the upper left-hand corner, low background, low depth of field, right? Good moment. But then we've got the game from the coach's perspective at the bottom. And then the reaction shot in the locker room after the game's over on the top right. Again, showing mastery, showing a new way of seeing things. Then I want to briefly just talk about the reaction. I think so many times we spend time talking about when the ball is in play that we forget to talk about the reaction. And you notice that my rules kind of stay the same. Move up close, know the sport, play with light, watch the sidelines and the fans. I want the story of the guy at the University of Texas Hook'em that's on the bottom. Go talk to him. What was it like to be on the bottom of the pile when the team won the College World Series? Right? What great composition and the repetition of shapes, all leading down to that guy on the bottom of the pile. Right? Or we have a good moment in a game. And so we've got number 3 there in the middle. What did that feel like? And you can't go back a week later and ask. Right? You got to be there. You got to talk to them at intermission or right after the game when the emotions are still fresh. And your captions and your stories can depict what the pictures also depict. This is one of my favorite pictures by a photographer, a high school photographer out of Kansas. And the first time I saw it, I was very disappointed that the Vikings guy was not in focus. And then I realized I need to think outside the box a little bit too, because the story's behind him and we're using him as a layer, foreground, middle ground, background. He's the foreground. And the story here for this school was winning the game. But we have the winning and the loss all in one picture. Great composition, use the right lens, nice even lighting. Here, this photographer from McKinney High School in Texas got the scoreboard in the picture to add to the story. But what you find out when you read the caption is the police officer that's consoling the football player is his father. What a neat piece of the story. Interaction, reaction. Turn around and look the other way. What are the players doing during the match? Or maybe there's stories outside of school. Here's a story about a football player who's got a 16-month-old. What a great story. And look how the photographer used some unique lighting and composition to help tell that story. Again, get in the locker room. If you can during intermission or after the game, get in the locker room and look at the reaction of the players and the coaches. You get to go places other people don't go. So if you can get in the locker room and tell the story of the coach and the players interacting after the game, the ordinary fan's not going to get to see that. So you've taken them somewhere that they can't ordinarily go. Help me feel the game, the interaction of the coach and the player and the referee. Help me feel those moments. The moment when mom catches her son's pop fly. Or the reaction after the game when they win a big game or a championship. Isn't that awesome? And look how the photographer's ready to go. Knew there was going to be some weird light. Probably is holding the camera over his head. Flash photography. And then, so we've got the action and we've got the reaction. But remember, with a lot of these sports, there's so much more than that. There's so much going on the sidelines and so much going on behind the scenes. So many stories to tell. Right at the intro of the game, right? How about these cheerleaders? Who's carrying the flag? What's his or her story? If you have ESPN game day, ESPN comes to your school, they're always going to have the cameras up there. Get in there just like they do and show the audience, show the fans. Turn around and see what the fans are doing during baseball games. There was that whole series of games where fans were interfering in the play until that was outlawed. And so turn around and catch these moments. Sometimes, quite frankly, these are better stories than the game itself. And we can feel it. Where we put these players on parade after a game is over. So we should feel that too. Or maybe just the happy little moments. This is why I want my photographers coming early and staying late. You don't find these little moments here by leaving early and coming late. Photographers that don't show up during rain delays, there's stories during the rain delays. Find out what do the players do. Sometimes rain delays can be hours and hours long. I know some of our players would study. They'd bring their books with them and they would have them in the locker room. And if there were significant delays, they'd go study. That's a story, right? Be prepared to shoot the bench. When the players do something unexpected, turn around and shoot that. Don't forget to shoot the band. Those players work hard. They get up early. They have to learn to play and march at the same time. They deserve some coverage as well. You might also think about portraits. This was kind of a fad a while back. Melissa and Brian down in Florida had to shoot some football players from their county, and they wanted them to look like Florida, pink flamingos and a rubber ducky. Look at the lighting. They took this guy to the aquarium, and they lit the pictures like studio lighting. These are by Evan in Colorado. He used black and white to document his high school champions. And then second to lastly, worried about coverage. Right? But you can have some fun with coverage, right? Don't assume that everybody knows how baseball is played, right? Tell me some things about baseball that I don't know. Take me behind the scenes. Tell me things that I wouldn't just know by watching the game. Tell other stories, the medical impact, the cost of the game. Maybe you're going to do a calendar. Don't just do a calendar. Have some fun with it. Look how they're showing the photographs interacting with the text and the type. We didn't know this was going to happen at the Boston Marathon a few years ago. You have to be prepared at any time. You never know what's going to happen. And then lastly, have fun. Sometimes in sports photography, we take ourselves a little bit too seriously. It's not easy. Nobody said it was going to be easy. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it. So have a little bit of fun along the way. I put this one in there because the middle photographer is my photographer at North Carolina State. He thought he was funny. He was actually a very talented photographer. And that's also the last known sighting of my 300 millimeter 2.8 before somebody dropped it. Darn it, darn it, darn it. This is actually a real sports photography picture of the Weenie Dog races in Buda, Texas. And if you just want to have a little bit of fun, go shoot pictures of the Weenie Dog races in Buda, Texas every spring. Lastly, here's 4 resources for you. The Association of Texas Photography Instructors has galleries of thousands of pictures on its website. Sports photography, nature photography, everything. Go check them out. The Journalism Education Association has its contest galleries up at jeaphoto.smugmug.com. Again, thousands of photos that have won awards at the national level for you to look at, including very specific categories in sports photography, sports action, and sports feature shots. The College Photographer of the Year, there were several pictures in this slideshow that won awards in the CPOY contest. And then lastly, Robert Henishira's Sports Shooter website provides an excellent resource on all levels of photography. And I encourage photographers that are really into sports photography to join Sports Shooter. Here's me and one of my buddies. You're welcome to contact me at bradleywilson08@gmail.com or visit my website or find me on Twitter at bradleywilson09. I look forward to visiting with you, and it's been great talking just a little bit about sports photography. Again, let me remind you that the pictures in this slideshow remain copyrighted by the individuals who took the pictures. Thank you so much, and have a great day.